Unshelling Medicine Podcast. Healthcare in the language we understand.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again. So today I am excited for this conversation. This is again about nutrition, about a lot of healthy stuff. So I happen to have a great person here. That's Lea Dombrowski. Hi, Lea. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So Lea, can you introduce yourself and tell everybody a bit about yourself? We'd like to know you.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Lea Dombrowski. I'm a holistic health coach and nutritionist, and I specialize in helping women lose, weight, but also really improve their gut health. So I take a blend of not only nutrition, fitness, and lifestyle changes, but I also do functional medicine to really help people get to the root cause of what gut issues they are experiencing, because a lot of people who want to lose weight also tend to have something like PCOS or a gut imbalance or something going on that needs to be addressed. So I do like to kind of pull everything in my toolbox to help people.
I love that. So what got you into this space? What got you into the space of understanding that there's a need to balance hormones and that there's kind of like a cyclic effect of everything affecting each other or systemically? What made you have this interest?
Yeah, so it took a while, but I've always been, I was really sick, and I've always been somebody who had some sort of issue going on. It really did start as soon as I was born, like my long history of illnesses. But the first year of my life, I was pretty much had a chronic infection, and I was on antibiotics the whole first year of my life, which of course is not good for your microbiome. So I was on a lot of antibiotics, and I was always getting sick growing up, always, like way more than other kids. I would have like strep, ear infections, nose infections, this, that, or the other, all the freaking time, like a few times a year. And, at the time, I didn't think much of it. I was like, oh, I'm just a kid. Oh, wow, it happens. Kids get sick. But, looking back, I'm like, wow, that was really the start of my issues. But at the age of 20, that's kind of when they became more in my face. And that's kind of when I started struggling with bloating, chronic fatigue. I had fatigue that was so bad that I could barely function. I could barely sleep. I felt absolutely horrible. I had no motivation, no energy, complete brain fog, shell of a person. And I just felt horrible. And of course, I grew up with a mom who worked at a hospital. So I went to so many specialists and doctors and gastroenterologists and this and that and the other, and did so many tests over the course of a few years, and just was completely dismissed and told it's normal and, there's nothing wrong with you, or God knows what I was told. But it was really crazy. And after 2 or 3 years of doing that, I just was so frustrated and so burnt out. I felt so horrible. I got worse. I had an autoimmune disease at this point, and just kept building up. And that's when I was like, okay, what the heck? And kind of did my own research and looked into it on my own, and found functional medicine and found holistic health and found nutrition, and was completely opened my eyes, because that's completely different from how I was raised with a mom who worked in, a hospital. So it was completely different, but that's kind of what really was a passion of mine now, is wow, I was able to not only send my own autoimmune condition into remission and heal my gut and all these things with, natural things, and feel so much better in my body. It just became such a passion of mine after dealing with all those issues for such a long time. So I'm very grateful that I found it and that I stumbled upon it, and, that I was able to heal.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So the two things stood out to me. So you mentioned a few times having a mom who works in a hospital, right? So a lot of healthcare providers or people who work in hospitals are very married to modern medicine in a sense, right? Yeah. So how hard was it for you to have your mother's buy-in and understanding that, hey, mom, I found this alternative and I think is working? How was that conversation?
She's pretty open-minded. She's not stuck in her ways. She's not a doctor. She's a social worker. So she works with people who are dying and really supports that. She's not really a doctor. So that I feel like that makes her more open-minded. But, of course, my whole life was doctor after doctor after doctor. And when I was getting constantly sick, that's all she knew. She didn't really know anything about functional medicine. She didn't know about nutrition. I tell people I literally, I'm a nutritionist, but I grew up on Pop-Tarts and cereal and processed food. And that's kind of how I grew up and what I was taught and all I knew for such a long time. So it is interesting how I went from being so one way to completely the other way, like antibiotics and cereal to supplements and whole foods, which is very different. So she's open-minded, which is good. And, she's very supportive. I don't know if she completely gets it or wraps her head around it, but she definitely is open-minded and understands the importance of food and all that. So I am trying to get her to do some things. There's some things that I want her to start doing, strength training and eating more better food. So it is a journey, but, I understand she comes from a completely different time. So, yeah.
So she's going to be happy to see you healthier and not have so many episodes of going back and forth into the hospital or, being on antibiotic therapy. She's going to be happy about that.
Yeah, no, I haven't gotten sick in a very long time. I mean, growing up, constantly getting infections and, that was crazy, but I don't even get colds anymore. I really don't. I feel like I had a horrible immune system and I was able to build it back up. So
good much to you.
Yeah, I'm
that's not easy.
Yeah, no, it is not easy. It took time. It took time, but I don't really get sick that much anymore, knock on wood.
Cool. So let's talk about the main issue, right? So you were able to find something that worked for you, or you were able to find functional medicine. You were able to understand the correlation of food, exercise, lifestyle to be able to effect a lifelong change, right? There's so much misinformation, I should say, out there, right? Not everybody's an expert. Not everybody really understands, but most people, sell their products or sell their stuff. So how difficult was it to wade through what was real, what was not so real, and what was misinformation versus what was fact?
Oh, yeah, no, that it was, when I first was kind of getting into this and opening my eyes to nutrition and all these things that I've, again, never heard about in my life growing up, it was completely overwhelming. I feel like not only is there a lot of misinformation out there, there's just a lot of information in general. And I feel like, especially now with TikTok, Instagram, podcasts, it's like an information dump. It's every single day you're hearing about a new ingredient that's going to give you cancer or this and that. I'm calm down. It's very stressful. And I always tell people to just breathe because nobody's perfect and I'm not perfect. And it's just crazy overwhelming. And I think when I first started, I definitely went down the rabbit hole that everyone else that I talked to is going down. And I'm please don't be like me. Please don't do that. Where you will hear a new diet and you'll try it and you'll see a new supplement and you're like, oh my gosh, let me go buy that and spend my money and waste my time. And, I literally tell people I've tried probably every diet there is out there under the sun, and none of it helped. None of it. No diet you see on the internet, no supplement is going to heal your issue because it's not tailored to you, your body, what's going on with you. So I wasted a lot of my time and money on stuff, and it was exhausting, and it caused a lot of disordered eating habits at the time. I was very unhealthy. I ended up losing a lot of weight and becoming unhealthy. So it took me a really long time to just understand my body and what I needed and the basics of nutrition. And I talked to so many women who have the same story as me, where they're I'm so afraid to eat food now, and I'm so stuck in this mindset where I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and I'm just afraid with all the freaking information out there. And I'm I promise, like, I'm like, I promise you I get it. Like, I've been there, and it's so overwhelming to kind of navigate that all of it. So I think it's just so helpful to get support and just like cut out the noise, because it was so overwhelming for me to be in that position and like have to learn. And it really took me getting certifications, like going through a lot of bad diets, a lot of bad things to learn about nutrition and kind of be in the place I'm at now where I was able to kind of navigate that on my own. So kind of having somebody who's an expert, like, and having that support, I would recommend that, because no diet, no supplement is going to heal you unless it's like tailored to you. So I hope that makes sense. But
Well,
I'm always telling people that.
because everything is not for everybody. There's no one size fits all, diet plan, supplement, or even medication. Even with medication, the modern medicine, right? Some people can take one, say, cholesterol medication, and that is enough to kind of like help them. But then somebody else might need something else to augment that, right? So it's the same thing with, I believe, and I see this a lot with, supplements and diet. So the fat thing throws people off. There was a time, keto was the buzz, everything keto, but it wasn't for everybody, right? Even intermittent fasting, right?
Okay. You see, those things are just things I don't like anymore, because I know the science behind them now, and I'm like, please don't do that. Like, you don't have to, like, you really don't. And it's
Yeah.
the whole diet culture, really,
Yeah.
what I'm seeing now from the diet culture, like
Right.
working with people, is just a lot of metabolism issues, because
Yes.
people take the diet culture too far. And now they're having to face the consequences of having a metabolism that's not functioning properly, because they're doing yo-yo diet after yo-yo diet. And I'm so grateful that I got out of that, because I was stuck in that for like a year of doing this diet after diet, and my metabolism slowed down and I had to build it back up. And, I see so many people now with slowed metabolism, and they're experiencing weight loss resistance and uncomfortable symptoms and, weight gain and all these things. And I'm like, it's not, you don't have to eat less and do this diet and that diet. It's like, your body is smart, your metabolism is smart. Like, you can absolutely build up your metabolism again, but it's not going to come from the crash diets. So it's whenever I hear those, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I've seen and talked to like hundreds of women who just got caught up in the wrong diet trend, and it's so frustrating.
It is frustrating.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned something, you said weight loss resistance. And that is such a thing that brings a lot of frustration, especially when people delegate time and dedicate time to whatever fat diet their friend, their cousin, their auntie, whoever is on that, even coworkers that have raved about this working for them. And, when they, partake of this, for lack of a better word, new fashion in town, that weight loss resistance does happen, and it brings about frustration. How would you tell any listener today who may be experiencing that, what that really is and what the body's trying to communicate?
Yeah, so like I kind of said, like, typically weight loss resistance comes from metabolism. Typically, not always, but typically what I see, it's a metabolism issue. And the best way I can kind of describe it to people is when you restrict food, when you do these yo-yo diets, when you eat one meal a day, cut out all carbs, do these really unsustainable things, intermittent fasting, whatever it is, for a long period of time, and that people do these for years and like decades, like restriction and yo-yo diets to lose weight, it affects your metabolism, because what kind of happens is, like, the common word for it people hear is starvation mode. But the scientific word is metabolic adaptation, where your body's going to adapt to the calories and the nutrients it is given. And, our bodies don't understand that we live in the 21st century now and we have fridges in the kitchen, but it's just our body's natural instinct to protect ourselves and to get into this fight or flight response, where they're like, okay, we're not getting enough, so we're going to store it and we're going to hold on to this weight and fat. And a lot of women will become weight loss resistant in that stage, or gain weight, or even have symptoms like hair loss, constipation, bloating, like whatever it is, because they're just not getting enough nutrients to sustain themselves. And like I said, don't freak out. It's really, really common, especially nowadays. It's more common than you think. Most of the women I talk to experience this, but it's absolutely fixable with the right things and the right diet and the right lifestyle. It just starts with, getting out of that diet mindset where you believe that you can only lose weight by eating chicken, or like whatever it is. It just, that's kind of the first thing, is that mindset switch where people just don't want to accept that they might need to eat more, or they might need to change up their lifestyle to actually lose weight, which shocks people. But it's true, because that's just our body, and our bodies are smart, like I said.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. I think the common misunderstanding, whoever started this, I don't know who you are, but you need to have a word. People believe you have to eat very little to lose weight. It doesn't always equate to that, right? Starvation is not it, because when you starve your body's going to want to survive. You mentioned something that we talked a little bit on before we got on this call. Microbiomes is a buzzword, especially in the gut health and holistic and traditional health. I don't want to say community, but people who actually treat themselves with food. So, and is more and more being discussed in the modern medicine world, especially after, I don't know if you've seen the Netflix documentary on microbiomes.
No, I have not, and I do not know if it's accurate because I haven't seen it. I would have to watch it and let you know, because I've definitely seen some documentaries on Netflix that are very inaccurate and I do not agree with. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant to watching them. But I don't know. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, this one is very interesting. I think you may like this one. It's very is science driven and very experience driven. So different people were brought into, they did a lot of testing and they did a lot of analysis. They even included MRIs of the brain and how the brain reacts to each person when they see food. They talked about what you and I discussed today, which is, the fad diet, basically neglecting certain food groups because you feel like, okay, it would be better for you, and you're compromising your gut health. So in talking about microbiomes, for anybody who may not understand microbiome, how would you describe microbiome to the everyday person?
I guess it's, kind of, I feel like most people have a good understanding of what it is. Your gut, and like what's in your gut is a lot of good bacteria and a lot of bad bacteria. And there's a lot of things living in there that are kind of help you digest food, help you use the bathroom, help you function, get the proper nutrients you need. Kind of, when you eat a food, it's going to go into your stomach and it's going to dissolve, and your stomach is going to work for it, digest it, stuff like that. So most people have a good idea of what it is, and they understand that there's good bacteria, there's bad bacteria, and kind of the big word people know is dysbiosis.
Right.
But dysbiosis, where there's more bad bacteria than good bacteria. And there's a lot of other things that can kind of happen in your gut, like you have a gut lining. And this gut lining, where people hear the word leaky gut, is basically where there's holes in your gut lining that's seeping through.
Right.
So there's a few different things that kind of go on in people's gut. And I know a lot of people are like, probiotics, prebiotics, this and that to improve your microbiome. And there's a lot of products being pushed now to, solve gut issues, solve gut dysbiosis, leaky gut, SIBO, like all these things that people know about. But it is important to, if you do experience those issues, to be mindful and not just take random supplements that are going to heal your microbiome and benefit your bacteria and like whatever like is being marketed nowadays. But I feel like people have a good understanding that your gut and your microbiome really is everything. And I'm always telling people that if you have diabetes, if you have PCOS, if you have autoimmune conditions, if you have any sort of disease, any sort of discomfort, it starts in the gut. Your gut is everything. Like all diseases start in the gut. The microbiome in your gut health are impacts everything, not like your energy levels, your sleep, your digestion, your mood, like it's all coming from your gut. And a lot of people don't know that, like, oh my gosh, I have diabetes. I'm looking at something else, but I should be looking at my gut. And I'm always trying to tell people that, and tell people to be mindful of this, and be mindful that if you do have a disease, it's absolutely something that can be addressed by looking at your gut. And it does take, the right help for sure. I mean, doctors, like we mentioned, are the most helpful with reversing, diabetes and sending autoimmune diseases into remission. But it is possible. Like I did it, and I've seen so many women do the same thing. So I always tell people that there's no one on this earth who can't benefit from addressing their gut health. Truly.
Very true. Very true. And I love how you went through the nuances of the microbiomes, affecting us systemically. All the feel-good hormones that we have, that affects the brain comes from the gut. So, and the gut is, called the second brain because, there's a lot of very intelligent stuff your gut does for you. So, the microbiome conversation is something that is rapidly gaining strength. And I love that this conversation is being had on so many forums, right? So it's kind of the way that I describe microbiomes in a sense is the community in your gut. You don't want to deplete the community, right? You have all these different cultures in your community and they all work together for your benefit. So if you eat foods that do not feed each community, then they die, then you don't get the benefit from that community. So it's so interesting to hear your definition. I actually really like it. So where should a person start? So I've been following fat diets. I've been following, intermittent fasting. I have, restricted certain food groups. And now that I know that, I've listened to people who say, that you can only eat raw. That's the only way to go. Or you can only be vegetarian or vegan because, most of the biggest mammals on the planet are vegetarians. And, that's the healthiest thing you can do for yourself. So a person has done all of that. They've tried all these different things out. Where should they start? So I've done this. It's not working. How do I move forward?
Yeah. And I mean, it depends what your goal is. And it depends on the person and what they're hoping to achieve. Like if they're trying to lose weight and they've been doing the fad diets and doing everything wrong, like it's going to be completely different than somebody who, maybe listening this who has bloating or relates to me and my symptoms. So it kind of depends what you're looking for. But I think, what anybody can do is just, breathe. I think, one of the worst things that I see is just stress and overwhelm and people complicating the absolute heck out of everything and just making things way more crazy and overwhelming than it needs to be, like in this restrictive mindset. So how can I breathe? How can I be more present? How can I open my mind to listen to what my body is telling me and what my symptoms are telling me and just kind of tune in? Because I think the biggest thing that I see that people are lacking is presence. And, it's quote unquote easy to take a supplement. It's easy to eat different foods or whatever, but it's not easy to be present and be with yourself. People are very uncomfortable with that. And that's kind of where the stress epidemic is coming from. And the stress epidemic is causing gut issues, weight issues. And I'm not telling people to go sit down and meditate for 30 minutes a day and be a monk. And, people, can definitely get extreme with, the whole stress reduction thing, but make things as simple as you can for yourself. Like, what is one thing that I can do today to be present and tune into how I am feeling? Like, one of my favorite things to do, it sounds stupid, but I like to drive without music and just sit in the car and drive and just drive. Like, you don't need to be listening to music and podcasts and doing things every single second of the day. So find 10 minutes of your day to just chill. Like, I know, like, for me, like, it was so hard to start that and be like, okay, well, I'm, going on a walk. I have to be, on my phone watching YouTube. I have to be, doing something every second of the day or I'm going to drive myself nuts. So, even if it's just one drive for 10 minutes of just sitting there and getting that and building that muscle and getting comfortable with yourself, it's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing I had to do for sure. I've changed a lot about my life, but changing the stress, that is hard. That's the hardest part, but it is always a good place to start and a good place to kind of stem from, because once you're able to tap into that, your body and your mind is going to tell you things. Maybe you're building that muscle where you're okay, what do I need to eat? What am I craving right now? What do I feel like my body needs? Oh, maybe it's asking for a walk or more movement, or it's asking to sleep because I'm freaking exhausted. And just kind of tuning in and listening. And, that's not going to help everything, of course, but it's a good start, just to kind of calm down and stop thinking about what diet to do next and start thinking about how can I better support my body,
I love that. Thank you. That was a great advice. So it's okay to be in your head. It's okay to just spend time in the quiets of your mind. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Take your time for yourself. Relax. There's so much to be stressed about in life, right? And the more you stress, the more the problem compounds. So everybody, just like Lea said, take the time for yourself. 10 minutes, 20, 30, whatever works for you. Take the time for yourself, relax, rest up. Just don't run into the next fad diet. And if you must, try to look for a professional who is licensed, a professional who went to school. There's so many people that have changed their lives by doing this themselves. Kudos to them. However, make sure that whoever you're talking to who is coaching or guiding you is actually qualified to do so that you're not stuck in the cycle like Lea said. So Lea, I so thank you for being here. This was such an incredible conversation. So I hope everybody learned something, because I did absolutely learn something from Lea. And we're going to include Lea's information in the show notes. So whoever is interested in reaching out to her, asking more questions, or even being coached, or guided by her on this journey. If you're a woman, she primarily works with women, like she said, balancing hormones, because we have the hormonal stuff going on most times. So anybody who's interested in reaching out, we'll make sure we include Lea's information. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you, Lea, for being here.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help however I can.
Great. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Unshelling Medicine Podcast. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Altruistic Scribe on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We share additional tips, updates, and health-related content that you won't want to miss. Have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes? Reach out to us at altruisticscribeco.com. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and tackle the health topics that matter most to you. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.